Starting from 1980, Hong Kong entertainment began building a commercial empire. Introduction. www.zhaoshuyuan.com. In 1980, on Hong Kong Island, Li Jiaqing was not yet Superman, and many celebrities had not yet debuted. On the second day of the Lunar New Year, Li Luo traveled to the shore of Yuan Long and brought a search engine called 1000 Degrees, You Know It All, from the original Time and Space. From then on, the future of this time and space was completely changed. Hong Kong Island Entertainment Tycoon, Hollywood's Cross River Dragon, Special Economic Zone https://www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Chapter 1. Traveling to 80 Years. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, ho hot. Li Luo swam out of the water desperately and took a deep breath. With his good water nature, he had a feeling of resurrection. Cousin. Keep going. A fully inflated tire suddenly hit, and Li Luo reflexively hugged it. Turning his head, more than a dozen people competed to swim past him. So many people falling into the water together. Just as the idea popped up in my mind, a hoarse shout echoed in my ear again. Cousin, hurry up, we'll be ashore soon. A young man swam to his side and shouted, pulling on the tire and drifting forward with him. Cousin. Li Luo suddenly felt dizzy and powerless, quickly lying on the tire, letting the boy lead him forward. In 1980, on the second day of the Lunar New Year, on the shore of Yuan Long on Hong Kong Island, Li Luoguang lay on the ground, with weak limbs and intense pain in his mind. There seemed to be some scattered and unfamiliar memories inside, as if he had a real dream, unable to distinguish which one was himself. Suddenly, a light and shadow screen appeared in my mind, a familiar blue and white input box, paired with a button on the right side that was below 1000 degrees, shining brightly. In 1000 degrees, you all know, what is this? The confused state was swept away, and the chaotic memories merged together. His soul pierced through. Traversing onto a young man with the same name and surname, this morning, I swam with my cousin and a dozen fellow villagers from Shou to the opposite shore of Yuan Long on Hong Kong Island. Li Luo, whose soul pierced before him, came to Hong Kong for tourism during the Spring Festival and boarded a sightseeing yacht to go out to sea. However, he was squeezed out of the boat by a group of people taking photos. With excellent water properties, he couldn't find the direction of the water surface until he was about to lose consciousness. Only then did he see a glimmer of light, which led to the scene of swimming out of the water and receiving a tire thrown by his cheap cousin. Pork ribs Luo, skinny monkey Hua, let's go first. Please hurry up and don't be caught by the Hong Kong Island police. A dozen or so fellow villagers who swam ashore first got up one after another, greeted the two of them sitting and lying down, and hurriedly left with stumbling steps. Li Luo restrained his mind and was instantly full of strength. With both hands supporting him, he stood up nimbly in place. Cousin, are you okay? Ho Xiaohua, the cousin sitting paralyzed on the ground, stared blankly at his suddenly lively cousin. Get dressed quickly. Li Luo quickly took off the snake skin bag from his cousin's arm, took out his clothes, and put on his bare self. Ah, the clothes are wet. Ho Xiaohua touched his clothes, looking panicked. Take a look at Uncle Kai's phone number and address. I learned from my previous memory that they came to Hong Kong to seek refuge with their cousin's uncle. Fortunately, I can still see the phone clearly. Ho Xiaohua flipped through the letter, found the phone number left at the end, and breathed a sigh of relief. Then let's quickly find the phone. Reaching out to help his cousin who was still in a state of exhaustion, the two of them followed suit and left the shore. As he walked, his eyes were lifeless, and he actively recalled the screen of light and shadow in his mind. What can one do by crossing to Hong Kong Island in 1980? Thinking in his mind, the corresponding text appeared in the input box. When he silently recited the search, a large number of results immediately appeared on the screen. Starting an entertainment company, signing contracts with Guan Jilin, Li Jiasin, Chou Shuzhen, Li Lizhen. Hoarding land for real estate, waiting for billions of dollars, and then making friends with a large number of pure natural goddesses. Starting from Stanley Prison, making friends with big shots to dominate Hong Kong Island, sweeping away all grievances, and storing various natural goddesses, copying movies to sell scripts, becoming a star on Hong Kong Island, and then collaborating with a large number of women. I need to remember the winning number in the Lyoha lottery, make sure to buy lottery tickets, then continue to buy lottery tickets, continue to buy billions of dollars, and start paying. Li Luo could not help but stop, and quickly scanned a large amount of information in his mind at the speed of 0.1 seconds. Looking at the search results, it was undoubtedly the data from the decade after the 21st century. Only in the era of the internet explosion, people would have such colorful ideas. He quickly rejected the idea of joining the underworld, but he fully agreed with the suggestion of making friends with Hong Kong Island actresses. He was persistent in his past life and realized it in this life. But we must first have money, and it is a large amount of money. In the 1980s, Hong Kong Island's wealth mainly came from the real estate, finance, and service industries, while shipping has gradually declined. With his previous life of pretending to be foolish and pretending to be a fool in the world of entertainment, his IQ can be said to be in double digits. However, in this life, he has been fighting and dominating in the village, which cannot be described as a lack of education. It is simply that he has never read it. Taking into account the average level of past and present life, as well as the average level of being a person in 2 lifetimes, playing finance is somewhat reluctant. Hoarding land, building buildings, and collecting rent is in line with his dream of lying flat. He touched all the belongings in his pocket and quickly returned to reality. Buying lottery tickets is more in line with his current situation. Hopefully, 1,000 degrees will be useful. Don't let the addition of interesting 21st century souls in this era render the winning numbers invalid, even if it's only once. So buying lottery tickets and copying movie scripts immediately got him the top spot, which became his next action goal. In 1980, in the entertainment industry on Hong Kong Island, I came and plagiarized, bah. I conquer. Cousin, what? What's wrong with you? The trembling voice interrupted Li Luo's lust, and the smile on his face quickly faded away. He wiped the corners of his mouth with the back of his hand and silently helped his cousin take another step. At the entrance of the walled village far from the beach, the two of them hid under a big tree and looked at the nearby grocery store. Cousin, have you brought any money? Upon hearing his cousin's question, Li Luo took out a bag from his pocket, which contained 2 big Unity cards and a few coins. This was all he had. Can this work? Ho Xiaohua also held a few bills across the bank in his hand. Li Luo couldn't help but ask, didn't you think about calling here for Hong Kong dollars back then? Ho Xiaohua said wrongly, you didn't say anything either. At that time, I wasn't there yet. Li Luo let out a roar in his heart, helplessly patted his cousin's thin shoulder, and strode towards the grocery store. Boss, can I borrow a phone number? Li Luo stood in front of the grocery store, ignoring the boss's scrutinizing gaze, grabbed the phone, and turned back to ask for the phone number from his timid cousin. Hey, handsome guy, do you have money? The boss extended a fan to block the phone dial. Am I pretty? Li Luo was stunned. Although he had some beauty in his past life when he was young, no one had ever praised him for being pretty. At most, he was called handsome by the server at zhaoshuyuan.com. Hawk the street. I asked if you have any money on the phone. The boss slapped Li Luo's hand fiercely with a fan. How much is it? Li Luo, who had a reaction, immediately searched for the public phone bill on Hong Kong Island for 80 years in his mind, but did not see any relevant information. Just swam over. The boss looked up and down at the two of them, especially their clothes that were not yet dry, and smiled warmly. Do you have relatives on Hong Kong Island? Ho Xiaohua nodded honestly upon hearing the words. Li Luo frowned and looked at the boss's shining goldfish eyes with a bad premonition. It's easy to say, I'll help you contact your relatives. You stay in the surrounding village for now, and I'll find someone to take you there. The boss said as he walked out of the grocery store. Li Luo reached out and stopped. Boss, we just need to borrow a phone number. We won't trouble you. It's not too much trouble, you can rest assured and leave the rest to me. The boss pushed aside Li Luo's hand and shouted to the people wandering around the village, someone, business is coming from the other side. Li Luo saw several people approaching quickly in the distance, and his anxiety became more and more evident. He searched for the fate of the 1980 Shou illegal immigrants encountering enthusiastic villagers in Yuan Long in 0.01 seconds. Pump the street. Upon seeing the result, Li Luo burst into a rage and kicked the boss down. He flipped over and entered the grocery store, quickly flipping out 2 Hong Kong dollar bills and a few coins, and took away 2 packs of cigarettes and a lighter. After 5 seconds, Li Luo stood in front of the boss again, hesitated for 0.1 seconds, took out the bag containing the unity from his pocket, and threw it to the boss's chest. Don't accuse me of robbery. At most, it can be considered as forced buying and selling. It will take more than a decade for me to be guilty. After finishing speaking, he grabbed his stunned cousin and quickly escaped from the surrounding village. The enthusiastic villagers behind chased relentlessly and never gave up. Chapter 2. Arriving at the urban area. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, cousin, why do we have to run? Running wildly all the way, they shook off the enthusiastic villagers chasing after them from the surrounding village, and the 2 of them squatted on the roadside panting heavily. Those people want to sell us to your uncle, at least 2,000 yuan per person, Li Luo explained as he pulled out his cigarette box. Ah! 2,000 yuan. Ho Xiaohua was stunned. How many years do you have to work to earn it? Cousin, fortunately you run fast, but how do you know about this? I didn't know you were sold. When did you start smoking? Cough. Li Luo just lit a cigarette and was interrupted before swallowing it. Where did you get all these questions? Do you want to have one? Okay. The 2 of them swallowed clouds and exhaled mist, accompanied by Ho Xiaohua's cough. After a cigarette, Li Luo spat out his cigarette butt and stood up. Let's find a public phone booth. We have money now. Cousin, were you considered a robbery just now? Ho Xiaohua recalled the scene and asked in a low voice. I paid, didn't you see it? Li Luo glared at his cousin, don't slander yourself. Just now, you were at most forced to buy and sell, and you also smoked. Ho Xiaohua nodded in confusion and shook his head again. Remember that we are good people, but sometimes when we encounter bad people, don't be polite. Do you want your uncle to be blackmailed for 4,000 yuan, or do you want to be sent back to Dahuang village? Ah, you're right, Ho Xiaohua nodded fiercely. 2 hours later, at a public telephone booth in Yuan Long. Hello, I'm looking for uncle. I am Ho Xiaohua, his own nephew. Are you auntie? He left the car. When can he come back then? We have arrived in Yuan Long. This place seems to be called Li Wu Xian village. We are in a nearby public telephone booth, and my cousin Li Luo and I are together. Okay auntie, we'll wait here. Ho Xiaohua put down the phone excitedly and looked at his cousin who had already smoked half a pack of cigarettes on the way. Auntie said she would call the taxi company to contact uncle and let us wait for him here, he said, do you have a good relationship with Uncle A? Li Luo couldn't believe that joining the family was so smooth. Poor relatives took the initiative to pick them up. Of course, before my mother died, she said that uncle had always liked me since I was a child. Unfortunately, when I was 4 years old, uncle swam to Hong Kong Island and never saw me again. However, he still insists on writing letters every year, mentioning me in them. Li Luo smacked his lips, thinking about the TV plot he had seen in his past life. This aunt was met by his cousin uncle after he came to Hong Kong, and as usual, she would conceal the news of the two coming to Hong Kong. She even called the police to arrest them and sent the two poor relatives back to work for reform. How long did your aunt say she would come? No, she said she needs to contact uncle first, and she's not sure where uncle is driving. Oh, by the way, my uncle is a taxi driver, the kind of person who can drive a car every day. Oh. Li Luo was too lazy to pay attention to him, and in a state of boredom, he lit another cigarette and looked around, wary of any approaching orders. After more than 10 cigarette butts piled up in the area, the phone still didn't ring and the taxi didn't stop. Don't wait, it's been an hour now. Li Luo stood up. How do you know for an hour? Ho Xiaohua squatted in place and lifted his head. After smoking a cigarette, he refused to smoke again, feeling too uncomfortable. Why are you asking everything? I've been smoking more than 10 cigarettes for at least an hour. Li Luo suddenly remembered the latest map of Hong Kong Island from 24 years ago, which actually contained the address left by Uncle Ho Xiaohua. Let's go, let's find it ourselves. Isn't that good? Auntie asked me to wait here. It's not enough if you don't leave, look. Li Luo pouted to the side and rear, and two patrol officers dressed in military green were leisurely approaching. Then hurry up. The two of them had already met the patrol police twice along the way. This time, Ho Xiaohua did not run away, but stood up trembling and walked forward with his cousin without looking back. Hey, stop, one tall and one short in front. A shout came from behind, and Li Luo turned his head to look. Sure enough, two patrol officers walked quickly. We need to change clothes now, these clothes are too eye-catching. Li Luo looked at the clothes with green and gray patches on them, sighed, and whispered, run. The two people from Dahuang village ran wildly, and two patrol officers from the outskirts of the city chased after them at a fast pace for 100 meters, watching the other person disappear from sight. They calmly stopped and cursed a few words to continue patrolling the streets. Ding-ling-ling. After Li Luo and the others ran away, the public phone booth in the same place rang the bell, persistently ringing for a long time before hanging up. After a few minutes, it rang again, repeated 3 times before giving up. 1 hour later, a taxi stopped by the public telephone booth. The driver got out of the car and looked around, shouting a few times about Xiaohua. Disappointed, he got into the car and spun around a few times before finally stepping on the gas and leaving. Run quickly. Cousin, I can't do it anymore. There are so many police officers here. In the shadow of a certain alley in Suanwan, the two of them once again dodged a wave of pursuit. After all, this is a bustling street, and you're too sneaky. You have to walk forward with your head up and your chest up like me. Li Luo and his clothes were dry and wet on their way, and the idea of changing clothes never had a chance to come true. Let's go, it's already dark. Li Luo helped up his cousin who couldn't stand up and followed the map's instructions, feeling closer to the destination. The difference between the 24-year 1000 degrees map and the 80-year Hong Kong Island is too great. Except for the correct direction, the other streets are completely in a mess. Fortunately, his physical strength is unexpectedly strong, far exceeding the level of his previous life. From his cousin's surprised eyes and exaggerated tone, it can also be seen that he has surpassed his original self. Cousin, why are you so strong? What are you saying? I said, why are you so strong? Hee hee. Li Luo smiled mysteriously and helped his cousin out of the alley, joining the crowd at night and approaching towards the direction of Quanfeng Garden. On the night of the second day of the Chinese New Year in 1980. Suanwan, Hong Kong Island, Quanfeng Garden. This is not a low-rent house. Li Luo couldn't find a specific introduction to this community in Chengdu. As he stood downstairs, looking at rows of tall buildings, he was somewhat surprised. It was bought by my uncle. He wrote to me half a year ago, saying that he wanted me to come at that time. Ho Xiaohua excitedly looked at the tall building, but my aunt was seriously ill, so it wasn't until she left a month ago that I remembered this. Your uncle took the initiative to invite you, so he probably wouldn't refuse to accept you. Li Luo dispelled the idea of poor relatives seeking refuge with them. In these days, illegal immigrants can buy a house on Hong Kong Island, and the conditions are quite good. Of course not. Ho Xiaohua was a bit angry and went to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. My aunt told me that my uncle only has 2 daughters and no son. He has always regarded me as his own son, and I am the only child in the old Ho family. The 2 waited downstairs for someone to open the door and enter smoothly, while the legendary gatekeeper was dozing off. Ding, the 13th floor is here. Tell your taxi driver, if you don't repay the money, it won't be the 2 of us coming next time. Brother Quan, I just paid back 3,000 a few days ago. Why do you want another 8,000? The interest rate has risen too quickly. You're not good at math yourself, how dare you think our interest rates are rising too fast? What's a high-interest loan? Didn't your mother teach you? Li Luo stepped out of the elevator and saw 2 shirtless tattooed men blocking the entrance of a certain household, making a big fuss. The tattooed man in charge turned his head and saw Li Luo and his companion standing in the corridor. He opened his mouth and scolded, "Pak Street, what are you looking at?" Li and Luo lowered their heads and turned around before finally walking back. "Sorry, I'm looking for 13A, they said. "Taxi guy, your relatives have come to your house." Quan Gu glanced at Li Luo and his eyes lit up. "You're so handsome. Are you interested in getting rich with Quan Gu? I'll make you several $100s a night." Li Luo smiled and said, "Is there 1,000 yuan field?" At the end of the day, he also took the opportunity to look in the mirror and see his current appearance, which was quite similar to his youth in his previous life. He was 1.8 meters tall, and when he smiled, it was sunny, but when he didn't smile, it was gloomy and tempting. He really liked it. "Brother Quan, I'll treat you to tea with this money for a few days, and I'll definitely pay it back." A middle-aged man with half a head of white hair emerged from the door, holding a few banknotes and stuffing them into Brother Quan's hand. "Okay, I'll save you some face today. 5 days, just 5 days, prepare 8,000, otherwise it'll be 10,000 next time." The whole brother walked with his followers and whistled as he passed by Li Luo. He saw Ho Xiaohua, who was timid, smacking his lips. Chapter 3. Uncle of Wealth One Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, are you Ho Xiaohua? The middle-aged man inside the door walked out and saw a tall and handsome guy standing in the middle of the corridor, his face full of disbelief. "I'm Xiaohua." Ho Xiaohua rushed out from behind Li Luo and shouted excitedly. "Are you Xiaohua?" The middle-aged man was stunned and looked at the boy who seemed to be a few centimeters shorter than him, believing. "Your uncle, I've seen your photos before, and even my white hair caught up with my mother." Ho Xiaohua took 2 steps closer and became even more certain. "Ah Hua, show the letter to Uncle Kai." Li Luo walked up to his cousin and lightly patted his shaking shoulder. "Ah, yes." Ho Xiaohua flipped out the crumpled letter at a loss and handed it to the middle-aged man with both hands. The middle-aged man opened the letter and looked at his nephew with tears in his eyes. His eyes also turned red, and he opened his arms to tightly embrace his skinny nephew. "You have endured hardship. A sigh, have they left?" The haggard middle-aged woman poked her head out of the door and saw her husband hugging someone. She couldn't help but ask, "Who are they?" "It's Xiaohua, he's Xiaohua." Ho Yukai hurriedly pushed Ho Xiaohua to his wife and then looked at Li Luo. "Are you Alo? You are indeed a talented person. It's a pity to stay in Dahuang village." Uncle Kai Shu, I came with Ah Hua to seek refuge with you. Li Luo was still a bit worried. After all, he had nothing to seek refuge with other relatives. Oh, it's you guys. I called you 3 times, but no one answered. Aunt Kai walked out, pulling Xiaohua and Li Luo towards the house. Why don't you wait? Your uncle is still driving to find you. At that time, there were patrol police, so we ran away. Li Luo was so enthusiastic that he explained as he walked, I was worried about being caught and sent back, so we walked here with Ah Hua. It's hard for you, after walking so far, you can still find this. It's all thanks to my cousin, so I kept following him. If I couldn't move, he would support me and turn around. I took many wrong paths and found them in a daze. Ho Yotsai's home covers an area of over 60 square meters, with 2 bedrooms on one side. Upon entering, there is a living room and dining room, while the balcony serves as the kitchen and toilet. 2 little girls peeked out from a bedroom and looked timidly at 2 strangers. Come brother, recruit brother, this is your cousin Ah Hua, Ah Hua's cousin Ah Luo, you also call him cousin. Ho Yukai warmly introduced his 2 daughters. A movie suddenly popped up in Li Luo's mind, full of wealth and power. Ah Hua cousin, Ah Luo cousin. The 2 little girls timidly called out. Ho Xiaohua touched the back of his head and nodded straight. Li Luo reached into his pocket and dug out half a pack of cigarettes. Along the way, he had already smoked a pack and a half. He took out 2 banknotes exchanged in Yuan Long Wai village from another pocket and handed them to the 2 girls, saying with a smile, this is the pocket money given by Ah Hua and Ah Luo's brother. Happy New Year. The second woman reached out to take it, but was stopped by Aunt Kai. Uncle Kai waved his hand when he saw the situation, and the second woman then said thank you and ran back to the bedroom. Are you hungry? I'll go cook for you. I knew you were coming this afternoon and bought a lot of vegetables. Aunt Kai turned around and went to the balcony. Li Luo hurriedly said, Aunt Kai, don't bother. Do you have any leftovers or noodles? Let's just take a bite, it's too late. The living room clock clearly shows 10:15, taking a total of 16 hours from crossing the deep bay in the morning to arriving at the wealthy uncle's house. It's okay, you guys drink water first. Uncle Kai stopped Li Luo, rest well tonight and take you to collect your ID cards tomorrow. Will it be troublesome to collect my ID card tomorrow? Li Luo learned from Tian that in October this year, the Hong Kong government will cancel the arrival policy and all illegal immigrants will be forcibly deported. It is still February 1980. As long as illegal immigrants arrive in the urban area of Hong Kong Island and come into contact with their loved ones, they can receive a green temporary ID card and exchange it for a black permanent ID card after staying in Hong Kong for 7 years. Don't worry, I'll take a taxi to take you there, no one will stop you. You can stay here with peace of mind in the future. The rich man lit a cigarette. Li Luo couldn't help but order one for himself upon seeing the situation. Where did you get this kind of cigarette? The rich man couldn't help but ask when he saw Li Luo's cigarette box. I bought it after going ashore. Li Luo smiled shyly and lit the fire, taking a deep breath. Ho Xiaohua tilted his mouth beside him. Feeling the sincere treatment of the wealthy family, Li Luo hesitated for a moment and asked, Uncle, did you borrow a high-interest loan? The wealthy man took a few puffs of smoke and said dejectedly, a month ago, my daughter fell ill. I just bought a house and had no surplus money, so I had to borrow a high-interest loan to see a doctor. How much did I borrow and how much interest did I earn? I borrowed 5,000 yuan and should have only paid 7,000 yuan today, but I paid 3,000 yuan 2 days ago and today they still asked me for 8,000 yuan. The wealthy man smoked heavily in anger. Li Luo remained silent, recalling the information he had seen from Chengdu when he first landed, and calling out Chengdu in his mind. February 1980, Hong Kong Island 6 Union Lottery First Prize Number, February 19, 1980, winning number 123456, Li Luo filtered out a large amount of information and looked at the number incredulously, falling into deep suspicion. You don't have to worry about this, I have to pay for it. The rich man thought that Li Luo was scared and lit his second cigarette, taking another hard puff. Kai Shou, do you want to buy Lioha lottery? Li Luo regained his composure. I buy one bet every time, 5 yuan per bet, but unfortunately I have never won. The wealthy man understood Li Luo's meaning and shook his head with a bitter smile. Can you lend me 5 yuan? Li Luo regretted pretending to give me 2 Hong Kong dollars just now. You wanted to buy Lioha lottery when you first arrived. The wealthy man continued to shake his head. Anyway, who never thought of becoming rich overnight? After speaking, he took out 2 bills from his pocket and handed them to Li Luo and Ho Xiaohua respectively. You have successfully arrived on Hong Kong Island. It would be great if each person bought 2 bets to celebrate, as there are very few people who can reach the city on their own. This is your luck. Li Luo took the 10 yuan money handed by the wealthy man and solemnly received it in his pocket. After a sumptuous dinner in the eyes of the wealthy uncle and Ho Xiaohua, Li Luo and his cousin spent the night in the living room. The next morning, in Kowloon, Hong Kong Island, residents postponed their stay. Let's go back to Tsuen Wan and have a good meal. Alo didn't eat well yesterday, let's have a big meal today. The temporary ID card was successfully collected, and the wealthy man walked out of the door with his 2 nephews in a good mood. Uncle, it was already very abundant last night. This is the best food my cousin and I have had since childhood. I don't think Arlo is eating well. The wealthy man looked at Li Luo with a strange expression on his face. I ate very well yesterday, too. Li Luo tugged at the corner of his mouth and looked for the book garden www.zhaosuiyuan.com. Yesterday's dinner was indeed rare and ordinary for him, who came from 24 years ago. But he also understood that for an 80-year-old ordinary family on Hong Kong Island, having fish, meat, and seafood was already a rare and sumptuous dinner. For this reason, Li Luo even accompanied the wealthy man to drink an unknown bottle of whiskey. Let's go to Fuji to eat at noon. I'll arrange 2 waiters for you to work hard and earn a lot of money to build a house and go home as soon as possible. Uncle, I don't want to go back to Bowen. I want to stay on Hong Kong Island, Ho Xiaohua said timidly after seeing the high-rise buildings on Hong Kong Island. Uncle, I won't be a waiter anymore. I have my own way of getting rich. Li Luo swore never to work as a laborer. The wealthy man looked blankly at his 2 nephews and said in silence, okay. Uncle, where is the Lioha lottery betting station? Li Luo thought to himself, thinking to himself that the number he searched for all night without sleep last night was indeed 123456. There is one next to the Fuji. Get in the car first, and I'll take you there. Beside Tsuen Wan Fuji, inside the betting station. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Under the indifferent gaze of the staff, Li Luo's eyes lit up and he read out the number word by word clearly. Cousin, how could you have such a winning number? You would only buy it if you have a mental illness. Ho Xiaohua stood beside him, dumbfounded, and the wealthy man remained speechless. Wealthy uncle, Ah Hua, let's buy together. Anyway, it's only 5 yuan. Li Luo advised the 2 of them to spend 5 yuan each time, not to mention 1,000 degrees as a backup. I'll buy 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. The rich man took out 5 yuan and chose the number according to his own habits. Ho Xiaohua held the 10 yuan in his pocket and shook his head resolutely. Chapter 4. 6 Collaborating Lottery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Tsuen Wan Fuji. Thank you, Lao Chen. In the future, my nephew will rely on you. If you are not satisfied, feel free to beat or scold. How could it be, Lao Ho? We were fellow villagers who swam together back then. Your nephew is my nephew, and I must treat him like my own nephew, letting him rest assured to work with me. A bald middle-aged chubby man glanced at the young man sitting at the corner dining table and said, "Is that handsome guy also your nephew? Do you want to stay with me?" Ho Yukai looked back at Li Luo who was wandering in the sky and shook his head. "That's my nephew's cousin. My sister-in-law and his mother are two sisters. But the young man is a little big when he first came to Hong Kong Island. After he experiences setbacks, he may have to trouble you. It's irrelevant, don't worry, if this handsome guy works here, he will definitely attract many customers." The bald and chubby man patted the short Ho Yukai and laughed. "Your name is Arlo, right? Whatever you want to eat, Uncle Chen is treating you today." Fuji boss Lao Chen took Ho Yukai and Ho Xiaohua back to the dining table where Li Luo was sitting. "Thank you, Uncle Chen. I also really want to taste the Hong Kong Island cuisine of this era," Li Luo said with a sunny smile, staring at old Chen for a moment. "You're welcome. What kind of cuisine does my small shop have?" "They are all ordinary home-cooked dishes," said old Chen humbly. "First, let's have a roasted goose." Li Luo pointed to the grilled meat stall at the door, then looked at the menu as if announcing the dish name. "Braised wings, stir-fried beef with vegetable heart, preserved vegetables and eggs, fish-flavored eggplant in a pot, steamed silver cod, and Chaozhou River noodles. That's all for me. Uncle Kai, Hua, what would you like to order?" Li Luo handed the menu to the two people across from him who were dumbfounded. He looked up at old Chen, who was also in a daze, and said awkwardly, "Uncle Chen, isn't there a bit too much?" "No, not much." Old Chen quickly jotted down the dishes with his pen. "Then there are 6 more bottles of beer. How many bottles do you drink?" Li Luo asked the wealthy man and Hua sitting across from him, who took the menu but didn't order anything. 6 bottles are enough," the rich man waved his hand and said, "I still have to go to work and drink less later. Then add 12 more bottles, and Uncle Kai and Hua will also have 6 bottles each." Li Luo said to old Chen, "Uncle Chen, would you like to have some together?" Old Chen Chi smiled and said, "It's time for dinner now, wait for next time." No, I just need 2 bottles. Hua doesn't have a good tolerance for alcohol, a total of 10 bottles of beer." The rich man was startled by adding 12 more bottles. He knew last night that this nephew of Arlo was very good at drinking, and he drank half of a bottle of whiskey like drinking water, and his appetite was also particularly large. "Do you want any other dishes?" Old Chen asked, and Ho Yukai quickly shook his head, stood up and pulled old Chen away, whispering, "I'm sorry, Arlo is a big eater and also a big drinker. He cleaned up 6 or 7 dishes my wife cooked at home yesterday and almost vomited me. He didn't mean to order so much." "Old Ho, you look down on me," old Chen pretended to be angry. "We've been old friends for so many years, and you're still arguing with me for a meal that's only 100 or 200 yuan. I know your family is facing difficulties now, and I can't help you much. Don't be polite to me for just a meal." He kicked his nephew, who was standing beside him as a waiter, and said, "Why don't you go get your Uncle Ho some beer?" "Old Chen, the 2,000 yuan you borrowed from me a few days ago, I may not be able to repay it for now." Ho Yotsai's face was bitter, "Those damn high-interest loans. I originally wanted to repay a part of them in advance with less interest, but last night he asked me for 8,000 yuan. I don't know how I can come up with it after 5 days. Those who lend high-interest loans are all vampires. They are deceiving you. Do you want me to ask someone to help you talk about it?" Ho Yukai shook his head in frustration and said, "I have to spend money on someone else. I'll think of a way." After finishing, he frowned and returned to the dining table to sit down. "Kai Shou, you don't have to worry about high-interest loans for now. If everything goes smoothly, maybe you can repay them tomorrow." Li Luo clearly heard the conversation between Hou Yukai and Lao Chen just now. Since soul wearing and obtaining 1,000 degrees, he found that not only did his physical strength skyrocket, but also his eyesight and hearing far exceeded those of ordinary people. He couldn't understand whether this was a benefit of soul wearing or an increase in holdings below 1,000 degrees. Hou Yukai still shook his head. "Cousin, are you still thinking about winning the lottery?" Hou Xiaohua asked softly. Li Luo nodded, but in fact, he didn't have absolute confidence in his heart. After all, time and space are different. Suddenly, there is another person in this time and space, and he doesn't know how much impact it will have. "Kai Shu, where do you usually look at the winning numbers?" Li Luo didn't see a TV in Fuji, and Sai Shu's house didn't either. "I can listen to it on the car radio, buy a horse newspaper, or go to a tea restaurant with a TV. The livelihood of the neighboring street is there." Hou Yukai took the beer handed over by his nephew, Chen, and poured himself a glass to drink. "Kai Shu, how much does a TV set cost now?" "There are over 600 to over 1,000. "What about your house?" "I bought 600 feet 6 months ago, and it was priced at 140,000 yuan at the time. Now the price is similar, but I need to repay the 120,000 yuan loan, otherwise I would have bought the TV earlier." Hou Yukai drank another glass. Li Luo calculated the price and found that the wealthy man's house is located in the center of Tsuanwan. If it is in a remote area, he may be able to buy a 40 to 50 square meter house for just over 100,000 yuan. As long as he wins the lottery first prize, he will have financial freedom. Thinking of a better future, he couldn't help but smile. He poured beer for Uncle Kai and Hua, raised his glass, and said, "Uncle Kai, there is a saying that goes, there must be a way by car to the front of the mountain. You must believe in the luck that Hua and I have brought you." Hou Xiaohua saw the strange smile on his cousin's face again, and the more he pondered, the more he felt that it was a disease. The wealthy man remembered the lottery number bought by Li Luo and couldn't help but laugh and cry for a moment. The three of them continued to drink. On the third day of arrival on Hong Kong Island, it is the fourth day of the Lunar New Year, Tuesday. At around 9 o'clock in the evening, the Livelihood Tea Restaurant was bustling with people. "Liangzi, would you like another cup of milk tea?" The waiter once again came to Li Luo's table, looking at the already empty cups and plates. An hour ago, this stranger occupied a table and ordered a cup of milk tea and a pineapple bun. He chewed and ate slowly for over half an hour. Li Luo waved his hand and stared intently at the TV, along with more than a dozen other guests at the table. The waiter pursed his lips and chuckled inwardly, another foolish fork who wanted to become rich. Then he leaned against the counter, took out the lottery ticket he had purchased, and stared at the TV. On every lottery day, the livelihood is filled with guests holding one or several lottery tickets, waiting for Xia Dongqiu to announce the number that can change their lives from now on. Time, anxiously waiting for everyone, finally arrived at 21.30. On the TV, familiar music, visuals, and hosts appeared on time. In my daily life, the familiar guests at each table stared at the TV with hunger and thirst. The first winning number today is number 1. The second winning number is number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Sleeping slot, what a ghostly number. A bearded man slammed the table and roared, "No fool would buy such a number. You must have cheated on zhaoshuyuan.com in this episode." Li Luo sat next to him, his eyes twitching, his gaze still fixed on the TV, his breathing gradually becoming rapid. The fifth winning number is, number 5. Damn you, the next number won't be number 6, right? Another person angrily threw away the lottery ticket in their hand. No one must have won the first prize again this time, it's been several times, and the cumulative bonus is at least 3 or 4 million. Only a few million. Li Luo was stunned for a moment, his attention focused on the winning number, but he ignored the first prize money from the 1980s. He thought there could be at least a few million. You little red rascal, a few million is not enough for you to spend, it's enough to buy 10 rooms to make a living. I don't have to sell it for 600,000 yuan, said the livelihood boss, tearing apart a dozen lottery tickets in his hand and sitting on the side pouring himself a glass of brandy. Boss, those who want to see good wine have a share. The crowd, who had once again lost hope in life, cheered one after another. The boss had no choice but to ask the waiter to bring a cup and pour a little for each person in pain. The boss also specially placed a glass in front of Li Luo and comforted him, "Pretty guy, don't be discouraged. There are lottery tickets every week, take your time. It's really not suitable for your appearance. You can easily get several hundred." Li Luo ignored it, holding his breath and staring at the TV. The boss left uninteresting. The last winning number today is number 6. Boom. The whole life is boiling, with all kinds of street fights, eating shit, and grabbing your mother, echoing through the sky. Li Luo stared blankly at the TV, his hands trembling and breathing heavily. A few people noticed Li Luo's expression and shook their heads, sighing that he was too young. When the boss looked at the table where Li Luo was once again, it was already empty, with a banknote under the cup and several coins scattered next to it. Chapter 5. Divide huge funds. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, under the darkness of Tsuan, the sky is particularly beautiful and the air is exceptionally sweet. At least that's what Li Luo thinks. Liuhe lottery can win, and in the future, all you need to do is continue to buy billions of dollars, and then persist in your past life and achieve it in this life. A strange smile reappeared on his face, a bit lewd, a bit promiscuous, a bit defiant and confident. "Hi, good evening, uncle." Li Luo opened the unit door with the key given by the wealthy man and saw the gatekeeper dozing off again at a glance. His long-lost childlike innocence snapped up and he loudly greeted him. "Where did you come from?" The gatekeeper opened his sleepy eyes and put on his glasses, staring at the unfamiliar handsome guy. "I live in 13A, and Hou Yu Kai is my uncle." Li Luo walked by with a smile. "Stop, why didn't I know Hou Yu Kai had a nephew?" The gatekeeper stopped on the road, looking alert. "I just arrived the day before yesterday, here is my ID card." Li Luo maintained the good habit of his past life, and money can be brought without an ID card, as the hotel requires an ID card. "His surname is Ho, your surname is Li, you think I don't recognize characters?" The old man said angrily, "You stand, I'll make a phone call." After speaking, he dialed the landline number left by 13A, and after a few conversations, he returned his ID card. "Mainland kids, don't wander around at night. The streets are full of antique kids. If you live here with your uncle, you should learn from him and live a good life. Young people should not. MMP." Li Luo quickly walked towards the elevator with a smile on his face, away from the chattering gatekeeper. Uncle Kai's 2 daughters have already gone to bed. Uncle Kai, who is driving a taxi, and Hua, who just went to work in Fuji today, have not returned. Aunt Kai saw Li Luo coming back and wanted hot food, but was stopped by him, saying that she is very full now. Li Luo was indeed mentally full, even though he had spent all his money on a cup of milk tea and a pineapple bun, he couldn't feel his stomach empty in excitement. Sitting on the sofa, he lit the last cigarette with an excited expression, constantly pondering the distribution of this prize money. After all, his cheap cousin saved his life in the sea, and his wealthy family warmly welcomed him, successfully helping him secure his Hong Kong Island ID card. Whether it is the family affection brought by past life memories or the help received in reality, it is impossible to convince oneself to swallow it alone from an emotional and rational perspective. But for his own sake, he planned to leave the big head behind, but he was a bit worried that the wealthy uncle's family and cousin Ahua would be dissatisfied. In a slightly anxious wait, half an hour quickly passed. The wealthy man returned first and shouted excitedly when he saw Li Luo, "Good kid, you're really good." Li Luo knew that he couldn't hide the fact of winning the lottery. After all, it was the betting station that Uncle Kai and Hua accompanied him to. "This number is too easy to remember. Have you figured out what to do next?" The rich man took out another bottle of unknown whiskey and 2 glasses, and poured half a glass for Li Luo and himself on the spot. Li Luo picked up his glass and took a deep sip. "Uncle Kai, I would like to ask you a favor," he said, his heart trembling as he drank freely. "Is it about receiving the award?" Li Luo turned around and stared into the eyes of the wealthy man, saying, "Yes." The wealthy man patted his shoulder and took a sip of whiskey. "Don't worry, Uncle A will take you to the jockey club tomorrow. There are too many of you, you must go to the jockey club. Anla, the government guarantees that there will be no problems with the lottery, and you also have a Hong Kong Island ID card. Kai Shou, I hope to invest and do business with this money, but your and Hua's lives also need to be resolved." The wealthy man waved his hand and said, "You don't have to worry about me. As long as you're good, Hua has a job and can earn a few hundred yuan per month. No problem, let him work hard for more than a decade. When he gets a loan to buy a house, he can get a wife." Li Luo pondered the allocation amount and asked, "I heard that no one won the first prize in the previous installments. How many million will there be in this installment?" The wealthy man lit a cigarette and threw another one to Li Luo. "There was no one in the first 2 periods, so the total amount to this period is at least 300 or even 4 million, he said. Li Luo took a strong puff of his cigarette and said, "This is my plan. According to the number of people, I will leave 100,000 yuan each for your family and Ahua, and I will use the remaining money to invest and do business." "I can't take it. It's safer for you to buy more property if you have money," said the rich man with some embarrassment. "But the rich man really needs to trouble you. Borrow me 8,000 yuan and let me repay the high-interest loan first, otherwise they will sooner or later force my family to perish." Kai. Aunt Kai suddenly walked out of the bedroom and dragged Uncle Kai to the side, whispering softly. Seeing Uncle Kai constantly shaking his head, she angrily hit him a few times. Li Luo, who had excellent hearing, quickly stood up and said, "Aunt Kai, I'll leave this money to you for safekeeping. Don't underestimate it. If I make money from doing business, I'll repay you." "Oh, what's the reward?" Kai Auntie gave up Kai Uncle and walked up to Li Luo. "Arlo, both aunt and uncle are very grateful for your thoughtfulness. We are not greedy for you to win, but if our family could have some money, we would really live well. Your younger sister is about to reach school age, and I don't have a job. I rely on your uncle to drive a taxi day and night to earn some money, and he still has to hand it over to the company. Now there are also high-interest loans." Li Luo patiently listened to Aunt Kai's words for a long time, until Uncle Kai awkwardly pulled his wife away and angrily said, "You go back to the house. What's up with the man talking to you?" Aunt Kai twisted Uncle Kai fiercely twice. "What will you do with the high-interest loan in a few days? What will you do with your child going to school? You always want face, and Arlo is not an outsider." Uncle Kai angrily pushed Aunt Kai into the bedroom and closed the door. "Uncle Kai, this matter is settled like this. If you don't accept it, it's because you don't think I have enough money and that I'm stingy as a nephew." Li Luo saw Uncle Kai about to speak and made a firm decision. "Thank you, then." The rich man sighed and sat back on the sofa with Li Luo, drinking the remaining whiskey in one gulp and coughing uncontrollably. Li Luo saw that the wealthy man and his wife knew how to be content, and he breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He picked up an unknown whiskey and poured a full glass for the wealthy man and himself. "From now on, we will only drink royal salutes for whiskey and XO for brandy." The wealthy man was startled, and Li Luo breathed a sigh again. "I'll do whatever you want." The rich man looked straight at the almost overflowing liquid from his glass, swallowed and frothed, closed his eyes and took a sip, then turned the glass upside down to signal to Li Luo. Li Luo raised the bottle again, and the rich man quickly blocked the mouth of the glass. "Allo, uncle has taken it. I'm too old to drink from you," he said, "but I have an idea. Ah Hua is still young and it's inevitable to spend a huge sum of money recklessly. So don't tell him who won the prize beforehand. I'll let your aunt take care of his 100,000 yuan and give it to him when he's old enough to buy a house and get married." Li Luo looked at the wealthy man in silence until he felt a bit uneasy before saying, "If Ah Hua can cross the deep bay with me, he won't be a child anymore. He will know sooner or later about the fact that I won the prize with number 1 2 3 4 5 6. Uncle Kai still had to open his mouth, but was stopped by Li Luo. "Uncle Kai, you are doing it for his good, but we should respect his ideas more than make decisions for him." "Believe me, I believe him." The door opened, and Ho Xiaohua happened to get home from work. "Ah Hua, sit down." Li Luo greeted Ho Xiaohua, "Have you eaten yet?" Li Luo's stomach had already started to ring, but his energy had been focused on distributing bonuses before. He had already refused to let Aunt Kai eat hot food, and now he feels embarrassed to bring it up again. "I have eaten it. Uncle Chen manages all 3 meals a day. Today is the lottery day, and there are fewer guests tonight, so I came back early." Li Luo glanced at the time. It was already 10:30, and he had to leave before 8 o'clock in the morning. He didn't come back until this time, which is really a good job. "Allo, you haven't eaten yet, have you? I'll have your Kion cook a hot meal later, and we'll eat together." "I haven't eaten either," the rich man seemed to hear a gurgling voice. Li Luo felt a bit shy. "I spent all my money today and ate a pineapple bun, but now I'm hungry after drinking some wine." The rich man smiled and stood up to ask his wife to go for hot food, specifically ordering more noodles. "After all, I didn't buy a lot of vegetables today. Ah Hua, I won the first prize, and the prize money may be 3 or 4 million. "What?" Ho Xiaohua's buttocks immediately bounced up as he sat down, his mind buzzing. "Well, how could this be? Don't you want your cousin to win?" "Ah, no, cousin. I definitely hope you win, but it's unbelievable. You bought number 1 2 3 4 5 6. How could that be? If I could come to Hong Kong Island, then anything is possible," Li Luo smiled mysteriously. "Today, I watched the live broadcast of the lottery draw in my livelihood, and even the rich man knew the winning number." Ho Xiaohua turned his gaze to the wealthy uncle, who nodded seriously. He couldn't help but feel an uncontrollable excitement. "Then we need to celebrate. How about going to Fuji? The roast goose last time was so delicious, it was just too expensive. I can eat it 10 times a month, which would be good. The roasted goose over there is just average. We can go to the big restaurant to have a good meal." Li Luo held down the bouncing Ah Hua and pointed to the bedroom next to him, where the 2 daughters of the wealthy man were still sleeping. "What is the salary that Uncle Chen has set for you?" 400 yuan per month, saying that if I do well, I can still get a raise, Ah Hua said proudly. Li Luo learned that a wealthy man can earn 3 to 4,000 yuan per month by driving a taxi, but he has to pay off half of the loan and support his eldest daughter's tuition fees. "Don't make this money anymore. I will have a few million yuan soon, leaving you 100,000 yuan. I will give you 5,000 yuan per month. If I want to do business, I must have a trustworthy person around me. Let's get rich together. Give me 100,000 yuan, even 5,000 yuan per month." Ah Hua's buttocks bounced up again and was pressed down by Li Luo again. "You must be steady. Don't tell anyone about winning the prize, it will harm me and your wealthy uncle's family. Money cannot be exposed, understand?" Ah Hua nodded solemnly and said, "Don't worry, cousin. I know the importance of this matter." In the past, anyone who lived a good life in their hometown would either envy or be robbed at night. Li Luo looked at the worried rich man and smiled. "Rich man, I said you don't have to worry about Ah Hua. We grew up together since we were young, and he is not only sensible and obedient, but also kind-hearted. The wealthy man nodded with some peace of mind, but still said to Ah Hua seriously, "Don't spend money recklessly, and don't let anyone know. If old Chen asks you to borrow tens of thousands of yuan, you won't be able to refuse." Ah Hua was a bit dumbfounded. "Uncle Chen wouldn't mind me borrowing money." At this moment, Aunt Kai walked over with 2 large bowls and said, "All right, hurry up and eat. Go and collect the prize money tomorrow morning." "Good." Li Luo was already hungry and immediately took over the noodles and soup that were obviously filled for him. Aunt Kai turned around and brought in 2 plates of leftovers that had been stewed together. Chapter 6. Tian Shou Chang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The next morning, the Hong Kong Island Jockey Club. Li Luo, along with his wealthy uncle and Ah Hua, drifted back into the taxi, everyone with a happy expression on their faces. Li Luo once again wandered beyond the sky, unable to believe that everything was going so smoothly. Successfully swam to Hong Kong Island, sought refuge with relatives, and won the lottery. Today, I successfully received a promissory note from HSBC Bank for 3.82 million Hong Kong dollars. Allo. Allo. Cousin, uncle called you. Ah Hua, who was sitting in the back seat, pushed Li Luo's thigh and interrupted him as he was immersed in 1,000 degrees, you all know. Just now, he had already decided on what to do to get rich next, and even set his first goal character for his past life and his current life. Kai Shou, do you call me? Allo, where are you going now? First, open an account with HSBC to deposit the promissory note, and then withdraw 600,000 yuan. Everyone will share it. Wow, 100,000. Ah Hua couldn't help but bounce up in the car and make an intimate contact with the roof. Li Luo opened accounts for himself and Ah Hua at HSBC, transferred 100,000 yuan to Ah Hua, and then transferred 400,000 yuan to his uncle's account. He withdrew 100,000 yuan in cash, and his uncle immediately withdrew 10,000 yuan. He left the bank and went to a high-interest loan company to settle the accounts. Following Li Luo's request, the wealthy man took the 2 of them to the commercial street and bought several sets of clothes. Li Luo specially selected 2 suits that could enhance his appearance and enhance his stable image. After all, Li Luo's appearance is only 20 years old now. In the afternoon, the wealthy man drove a taxi with Ah Hua chattering incessantly, while Li Luo frowned and went back home in a daze. You guys sit down for a while, the dishes will be ready soon. Aunt Kai and Uncle Kai exchanged their eyes and immediately became lively, even the posture of frying the dishes became grand. Yesterday, the wealthy man did not agree to go to Fuji to celebrate. Instead, he asked his aunt to buy more vegetables and eat at home. After all, the sudden huge sum of money still made him feel uneasy and he should keep a low profile. Bang! A bottle of champagne and 2 bottles of XO were opened one after another, which cost Li Luo nearly 2,000 yuan. He didn't expect that the housing prices in this era were so cheap, so why is good wine still so expensive? But as long as you enter the store, you can't hesitate, let alone carry a huge sum of money in your pocket. Cheers! Li Luo, Ah Hua, and the wealthy uncle's family of 4 all raised their glasses to celebrate. Today's dishes were obviously much better than the meal on the 2nd day of the Lunar New Year. According to Aunt Kai's heartache, she spent more than 800 yuan on groceries alone. It was the first time she had spent so much money on groceries. Li Luo calmly gave Aunt Kai 1,000 yuan bill, which was decisively pushed away by the other party. They angrily said, "Are you trying to make uncle argue with me?" Li Luo smiled and helped bring the groceries to the table. Allo, what are you planning to do next? Aunt Kai worked hard for over 3 hours and didn't have any leftover dishes left. Li Luo patted her flat belly, sipped and drank half a cup of expensive XO, pondering the question from Uncle Kai. When he first landed, he set two major plans to make a fortune. Among them, the 6 Harmony lottery had already been realized, although it didn't cost tens of millions, at least he received more than 3 million yuan. It was only possible to win the 6 Harmony lottery once, not necessarily a second time, and he still had to prepare for the worst. The second big plan to make a fortune is to plagiarize the scripts of Hong Kong films from the 1980s. As for the new Shou mountain swordsman who was struggling in this era, he kept his distance and only chose movies that were popular in the original time and space. The love of Hong Kong audiences would not have undergone a genetic mutation just because he was panting. If he doesn't have money, he will sell the script. Jiahe and Princess Jean are both his ideal buyers, and they are wealthy and value talent. And now with over 3 million start-up funds, the best way is to start a small film production company on your own, shoot and earn money. After all, in this era, the 1,000-foot luxury homes in Suan were less than 200,000 yuan, and the average production cost of a regular movie was around 1 million yuan. I want to make a movie, a low-cost comedy film. 1 million should be enough, right? Movie. The wealthy man was taken aback for a moment, completely unable to keep up with Li Luo's thinking. After calming down, he slammed his thigh and said urgently, 1 million. You're wasting your money. The 1,000-foot shop in Old Fuji is less than 300,000 yuan, so it's safer to buy a few more properties. Just wait for the rent to be collected and it'll be enough for you to survive. Li Luo lowered his head and pondered, actually checking the information of Hong Kong Island in this era. From 1980 to 1985, the housing prices on Hong Kong Island steadily increased, more than doubling. It was not until 1985 when China and Britain announced that the return of Hong Kong Island had become a foregone conclusion, leading to a large number of Yingzi evacuations that there was a sharp decline. This opportunity created a superhero on Hong Kong Island, and from then on, housing prices on Hong Kong Island skyrocketed for more than a decade. However, if a property purchased for only 3 million yuan was to reach a value of over 100 million yuan, it would take at least 10 years to wait. Li Luo has been a person of 2 generations, and God has given him a second chance to be reborn. He has also been given a golden finger from the original time and space, which is 1,000 degrees, you all know. He doesn't want to sit idly by, let alone a proposal from 1,000 degrees to make friends with pure natural female stars, which has already awakened his previous life obsession. Looking at the familiar faces, he imagines deep communication with them who were in their prime 40 years ago, that kind of wonderful feeling. So it is necessary to enter the entertainment industry, not only to quickly accumulate raw funds, but also to have more opportunities to interact with past life aspirations, make a fortune and engage in business and life together. But real estate is also Li Luo's goal. If we want to develop it, it's not about buying a few properties, at least building tens of thousands of properties, following the example of Li Chaoran who owns 20% of the properties in Hong Kong in the next decade. At this time, the name Superman has not yet appeared, and if we are fast enough, lucky enough, we cannot determine who Superman is. The establishment of the Shenzhen Bay Special Economic Zone, which is about to be announced in 6 months, represents a new era of rapid development for the mainland. Compared to the small rivers and streams on Hong Kong Island, it is the true blue sea and blue sky. Money, I want money, a lot of money, and it must be fast, fast, fast. Li Luo felt more and more melancholic as he thought about it. He had just won 3.82 million yuan in joy, but was mercilessly extinguished by his vast dreams. If Liuhe Lottery can win continuously, it would be great. Tomorrow, we need to continue buying, keep buying, quickly become a billionaire, and then invest tenfold in stocks, hoard millions of acres of land, build hundreds of thousands of properties, and achieve billions, even hundreds of billions, in minutes. Li Luo became happy again. With his past life skills, Ah Q's spirit quickly rose, and all his melancholy vanished into thin air. Allo. Cousin, what's wrong with you? You're sick again. The shouts of Shou and Ahua, as well as the constant pushing and shoving movements, recalled Li Luo's soul that had already run out of the sky. Ah, what are you talking about? The wealthy man looked at Li Luo with concern and said, Are you sick? Li Luo was taken aback for a moment. What's wrong with me? He then glared at Ahua and said, It's you talking nonsense again. Ahua scratched the back of his head in frustration. I have decided to make a movie. I am actually a screenwriter prodigy with many scripts in my mind, and I will make money. Cousin, when did you become a screenwriter genius? You can't even recognize words. Allo, I'm also curious about this. How could you know about Remy Martin and XO, and when you first come to Hong Kong Island, you're going to buy a lottery? You're not like someone who just came out of the countryside across the river, but rather someone like me who has lived on Hong Kong Island for over a decade, who seems to be from the countryside. Li Luo chuckled inwardly. In my era, the living standards on Hong Kong Island were at most considered a third-tier city. And he is an experienced veteran who has been working hard in a super first-tier city for 20 years. He has never experienced anything before. XO and Lafite have both indulged in drinking, and all kinds of beautiful ladies have communicated with him. Not to mention how much the world has been, at least there has been nothing beyond his vision since he traveled to Hong Kong Island. Have you ever heard of Tian Shou? To avoid revealing more details in the future, Li Luo decided to deceive him. On the plateau, there are Tian Shou singing poets. They may not know a word, but they can sing tens of thousands of words of poetry. Ahua and Uncle Kai nodded and shook their heads in confusion. Aunt Kai, after tidying up the table, stood beside her curiously listening to Li Luo continue to ramble, saying, As soon as I landed on the land of Hong Kong Island, I gained a lot of knowledge in my mind, so I believe I will definitely succeed. That's why I casually bought the lottery ticket for number 123456, which confirmed this. Ahua, Shou, and Kai Auntie nodded fiercely, and Shou said cautiously, You have this ability. You are truly blessed by Huang Daxian. Tomorrow, I will take you to repay the gods. I'm not going, I haven't even asked him. What kind of god is there? Besides, my divine gift may not be from him. Perhaps this god hasn't appeared on Hong Kong Island yet. You can't talk nonsense about this. Aunt Kai said anxiously, but was interrupted by Uncle Kai. Aluo, you can handle it yourself, but we can't reveal Aluo's knowledge from heaven. This is our top secret. Ahua and Aunt Kai nodded seriously and promised. Li Luo looked at the tense attitudes of the three and reflected on whether he had deceived them. Cousin. Ahua hesitated and said, I have money now and want to sell meat. Selling meat. Li Luo frowned and reflexively looked up and down at his cousin's lean figure. You don't have any flesh, I'm pretty much the same. What? Ahua was taken aback for a moment. I want to set up a meat stall. We used to want to eat meat but couldn't, but now I can always eat it all at once when I sell my own meat. Li Luo suddenly said, You're right. You should eat more meat. My cousin supports you. No need, cousin. With the 100,000 yuan you gave me, it should be enough. I asked the rich man to set up a stall for a few thousand yuan, which would be enough. Ahua smiled simply. Li Luo smiled and nodded. What he had just expressed was just spiritual support. It seems that he cannot casually say these words in the future, which may cause misunderstandings. The wealthy man looked at his two nephews who had just arrived on Hong Kong Island and were about to embark on their respective careers. He couldn't help but smile with satisfaction and made up his mind to work harder in driving a taxi in the future. But the top priority is to buy a house first, and then buy a car. That night, lying on the floor of the living room with his cousin Ahua again, Li Luo completely forgot what the rich man had repeatedly said to be low-key. The luxurious cars that could be bought on Hong Kong Island in 80 years displayed on the screen of light and shadow in his mind made him itch uncontrollably. After all, he was a low-level layman in his past life, who had worked hard for 20 years to pursue tickets, houses, cars, and women. The light and shadow screen clearly displays. The first-generation Mercedes-Benz S, priced at 98,000 Hong Kong dollars with the code name W116, has a V8 engine with a flat style and is about to be discontinued. The second-generation W126 will only appear on Hong Kong Island in a few more months, so it's better to buy a new one. Although it's very retro, it will be more than a decade before a true tiger-headed car is produced. The first-generation BMW 7, priced at 93,000 Hong Kong dollars, has a much more modest appearance than the W116 and is not imposing. Well, forget it. The Ferrari GT4, priced at 140,000 Hong Kong dollars, is a two-door sports car that is not grand and disliked. As an old man with decades of life experience, he still prefers a four-door big car. The Porsche 928, priced at 210,000 Hong Kong dollars, is also a two-door sports car. It is definitely worth buying at the age of 20, and it will definitely appeal to girls. However, now that there are no girls, it is still a career-oriented four-door large car. Rolls-Royce, priced at 3 million Hong Kong dollars, what? Continuing to search for Hong Kong Island properties in 1980. A 1,000-foot mansion in Tsuen Wan Center, priced at 180,000 Hong Kong dollars, with a 3-bedroom apartment of 90 square meters. It's too small to be worth 3 million yuan. A 1,000-foot luxury mansion with a sea view in Tsuen Wan, priced at 200,000 Hong Kong dollars, with a 3-bedroom apartment of 100 square meters. It's nice to have a sea view, but it's still too small. The duplex mansion with sea view in Tsuen Wan is priced at 400,000 Hong Kong dollars and has a 5-bedroom apartment of 160 square meters. It also comes with an underground parking space, which is reasonable. Let's take a closer look. A 600-foot luxury mansion in Tsim Sha Tsui, priced at 180,000 Hong Kong dollars, can this also be considered a luxury mansion? Civ all within 1,000 feet. A 5,000-foot villa in Deepwater Bay, priced at 6 million Hong Kong dollars. Forget it, I can't afford it. Chapter 7. Buying a house and a car. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Aloe didn't sleep well. Uncle Kai, you too. The next morning, Li Luo opened his red eyes and saw the wealthy man walking out of the bedroom with black circles under his eyes. The two of them looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Kai Shou, I've decided to buy a house first. That's right. Then get a driver's license and buy a car. That's right, having a car is convenient, just buy a Nissan, it's sturdy and durable, and you can get a second-hand one for over 10,000 yuan. Buying Pingji is more suitable, after all, I want to do business. Li Luo searched for reasons for his past obsession. That's right, Arlo is someone who does great things. Kai Shou, can you stop working these days and take me around to see if I can get these things done as soon as possible? Okay, no problem. Thank you, Uncle Wealth. You're my nephew, why are you saying these things? You should. After breakfast, the wealthy man drove Li Luo and Hua to a real estate agent and began his journey of buying a house on Hong Kong Island in 1980. And Hua announced his graduation after working as a Fuji waiter for just one day. This house looks just right. In a seaside townhouse in Repulse Bay, the real estate agent followed behind Li Luo with a tired face but still maintaining a smile. Li Sheng, your vision is too high. Only such a house is worthy of you. Nearby are the private residences of Hong Kong Island tycoons, making it definitely one of the wealthiest areas in the wealthy district. How much does this house cost? Li Luo looked at more than 10 sea view rooms in a day and found that either the size was small, the layout was poor, or the scenery was not good, which did not meet his expectations for sea view rooms. You definitely made a profit from buying it today. It's only 1.3 million yuan, almost 3,000 feet of a 3-story small Western-style building. You can park 2 cars in front of the door, and open the window facing south, which is the boundless sea. As you said, every day when you wake up facing the sea and plant a few pots of flowers on the balcony, it's like spring flowers blooming. The real estate agent smiled and wrinkles appeared on his face. But it's just a coincidence, it's still a bit small. This house has been around for years. This row of small Western-style buildings has only been built for over a decade, and they are all inhabited by elites like you. The future Hong Kong Island tycoons, after spending a little over 100,000 yuan on decoration, will definitely be brand new luxury homes. How about this price? Li Luo said, the current and future prices of a row villa with a shallow water bay sea view are not expensive at 1.3 million yuan. It will appreciate by at least 10 times in the next 10 years. I can help you talk to the owner, but this price range is actually very cost-effective. It's also because the owner's family has immigrated that they are eager to sell it. They also have cars and shops that are being sold, and the prices are not expensive. Li Luo became interested. What car? Where's the shop? The owner has a Pingji car, which I have been driving for a long time. It is only sold for 40,000 yuan after 5 years of age, and there are also 3 shops in Causeway Bay and Sim Sha Sui totaling over 3,000 feet, with a package price of 1.5 million yuan. Did the owner lend you the car to drive? Of course not. The company I work for also has a used car business, so I just came out to promote it. Li Luo chuckled inwardly, bullshit promotion is just using public service for personal gain. After all, in recent years, Pingji has become a representative of luxury cars, and it is really difficult for ordinary Hong Kong Islanders to drive them. Allo, you can take a look at the shops. It's more cost-effective than buying a house, and the rent can be quite expensive. Uncle Kai and Ah Hua carefully walked around the house and happened to hear the agent's words. Li Luo shook his head and said to the agent, "Can I try that Pingji?" Of course. The agent thought Li Luo wanted to buy a car and immediately took out the key to take Li Luo out of the house. Li Luo approached the car and looked back. This was a townhouse located at the foot of the mountain, adjacent to the beach of Repulse Bay. There were over 20 households in total, with a single-story area of only 70.80 square meters. It was built in a slender shape, with a living room, dining room, and kitchen on the first floor, and a total of 4 bedrooms on the second and third floors. Compared to the other residential buildings we saw today, it was indeed several levels higher. Li Sheng's driving skills are amazing. After sliding around, the agent generously praised Li Luo, as if forgetting that he was on the road without distinguishing left and right. He hurriedly turned on the windshield wipers before turning on the turn signals. It's okay, it's my first time driving a right-hand drive car. Li Luo parked the car and was quite satisfied with his skills. It shouldn't be a problem to get a driver's license on Hong Kong Island. There's no such thing as abnormal subject to here. First time. The agent was a bit scared and suddenly had an idea in his mind. He quickly shook his head. This handsome guy didn't look like he had just sneaked in from the mainland. His temperament and carefree spirit easily crushed him, an old Hong Kong man. Tell the owner that I will take 1.3 million yuan, but this car must be included as a gift. Intermediary, damn it, that's what it means. Why, there's difficulty. Li Luo turned to look at the agent. No, I'll contact you as soon as possible. If everything is settled, I don't know how Li Sheng will make the payment, after all, the owner is in a hurry to use cash. The agent realized that as long as the house can be sold, there's no need to worry about the commission for a car. Men should be generous. Cash is troublesome, can HSBC bank checks be accepted? Li Luo sat around the car, smacking his lips. This was the first-generation Mercedes-Benz S, W116, which had a bit of a tiger-headed appearance, but it was even flatter, looking more youthful and fashionable. Its classic appearance matched well with my classic and handsome appearance. The agent was about to interject after listening to the first half of the sentence, but quickly said, "Of course, Li Sheng is quick and quick. He looks like someone who can do big things, and sooner or later he will become a big shot on Hong Kong Island. In the future, I will have to rely on Li Sheng." Li Luo glanced at a middle-aged real estate agent, as if seeing his past life, he couldn't help but laugh. It's great to have money, especially on Hong Kong Island in the 1980s. 5 days later, it's still Repulse Bay and that house. Li Luo skillfully drove the real estate agent and Hua and Pingji, while the wealthy man pulled his family of 4 in a taxi to the front of the house. In the previous few days, Li Luo had successfully obtained his driver's license, which was surprisingly simple, while Hua's ID card was still waiting for another year before reaching the age of 18. Li Sheng, put away the file bag, which contains the transfer procedures for the house and car, and the key to the house has been officially handed over to you. From now on, you will be the owner of this house. Gee, you also know that I have just arrived on Hong Kong Island and don't understand many things. Li Luo handed the file bag and room key to Aunt Kai, put the car key into his pocket, lit a cigarette, and threw another one to Du Hongji. He watched Uncle Kai's 2 daughters run into the villa happily, and Uncle Kai's wife and Hua followed closely behind. I didn't expect that Li Sheng had only been on Hong Kong Island for a few days. If it weren't for the display on his ID card, I wouldn't have believed that you still lived there 10 days ago, said real estate agent Du Hongji as he took a cigarette and lit it himself. So, I'm not familiar with my hometown and I really need an old Hong Kong person to help me. Du Hongji understood a bit. Although he envied Li Luo's nouveau riche attitude, he still despised him more. He casually refused, "Li Sheng, you also know that I have been working as a real estate agent for more than 10 years and can't do anything except sell houses. The monthly base salary is 5,000 yuan, and other bonuses are calculated separately based on the results of the work." Li Luo took a puff of smoke and whispered. Du Hongji smiled and said, "You may not know the income of our industry when you first arrived. I have been working for more than a decade, and when things don't go well, I may only receive a little salary, but as long as I sell one set, I can earn at least a few thousand. If it's your set, then it's not enough. Let me put it this way. A monthly base salary of 5,000 yuan, a bonus for work, and a total annual income of no less than 150,000 yuan. If it's missing, I'll compensate you directly." Li Luo leaned against the car door, looked up at the blue sky and white clouds, and didn't even look at Du Hongji. He already felt his disdain for himself in his heart, but it's okay. This is an era where money is paramount, and Hong Kong Island is one of the leaders. "Li Sheng, are you joking? I don't know what you plan to do. I can't do illegal things. If you don't have a long-term plan, I won't have any guarantee of following you. I want to invest in movies." Li Luo has already copied out the rich and powerful movie plot from Chengdu in the past few days, waiting to acquire a small film production company with ready-made personnel to start his own business, but he has a black eye. Undoubtedly, it's Li Sheng. He really does have a big business there. Du Hongji couldn't keep up in his mind and just said a few habitual words before realizing it. "What's up with me? I don't know how to make movies. I don't need you to shoot, I don't need you to act, of course, you can also make a guest appearance, maybe you're a late bloomer movie star." Li Luo lit another cigarette. "I need your mouth, and I also need your decades of social experience living on Hong Kong Island. I have searched for several small film production companies, and the script and funding are not lacking. Once I find a suitable director, I will start preparing for filming. My time is tight, I need your response before I finish smoking this cigarette." Li Luo took a soft puff of his cigarette. Looking back on this period of time, he bought lottery and horse tickets several times and didn't even win a consolation prize. The lottery information in the history of time and space is no longer accurate in this era, and he began to fear losing this golden finger. The panic once spread to Li Luo's heart. In this time and space, he could only rely on his foresight of the future situation and the future information given by Qindu. If both are no longer effective, the only thing left is a good body besides copying the movie script. Chapter 8. Routines from over 40 years ago. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Du Hongji frowned and began to pace. After a moment, he looked up at Li Luo and solemnly asked, "How much capital are you planning to invest?" 1 million is not enough, Li Luo raised a finger. You're going to make a salty movie. Du Hongji was disappointed. Li Luo shook his head and said, I want to make a comedy film that tells the story of a family on Hong Kong Island who live a difficult life but suddenly win the lottery. It's a low-cost comedy film and my masterpiece. Du Hongji's eyes lit up and he said, it's a bit interesting. There's no Hong Kong Islander who doesn't buy lottery, but there are too few who can win. I've only won the 4th prize once in all these years, a few thousand yuan. So what's your answer? Even though Li Luo slowed down his smoking speed, a cigarette still burned to his buttocks, and he spat out his cigarette butt and ran it over with shiny leather shoes. I promise you, Li Sheng. Du Hongji extended his hands, thank you for your trust. I will definitely devote myself to the cause of the boss's death. It's an exaggeration. Let's work together and make a fortune together. Li Luo reached out his right hand and was held by the other party. When the company starts smoothly, you will definitely have a seat among the shareholders. How many people are there in our company now? Du Hongji asked curiously. Li Luo pointed to the other party first, then pointed to himself, including you and me, there are a total of 2 people, but the company has not been registered yet. With the contact of Du Hongji, the house in Repulse Bay has started to be renovated, and the process of acquiring a small film production company has also reached the negotiation stage. Du Sheng, as you can see, I have a complete set of personnel and equipment. As long as you have a script, you can start filming immediately. This price is really too low. How many film companies of this scale are there on Hong Kong Island? I say there are only a few more than 100, because my boss really likes the scenery of your office. Otherwise, the one next to you would only cost 600,000 yuan. Why should we give you 650,000 yuan? But my company has been established for 3 years, has made several movies, and the production team has honed their skills. All of them are experienced talents. Alright, stop talking about those few movies. There's not even one that grossed over 1 million yuan at the box office, and even the previous movie, Jiahe, didn't agree to be released for you. In the office of the boss of Babeo Film Production Company in Central, Du Hongji was smoking a cigarette, crossing his legs and waving his hand in disdain. It's not that my movies are not good, but that Jiahe's management doesn't know how to appreciate them. They only know how to praise Qinglong and Hong Yinbao, who have abandoned us small film companies. Dingling bell. Wait a moment, I'll answer the phone. Du Hongji picked up the big brother he had placed on his desk. Hey, that's not possible. That was yesterday's price, today it's 550,000. Why not? Don't you know what the market is like now? There are many people who have invited me to talk about acquisitions. Don't say anything, I still have something to do. You can call me again if you think about it. Be a good person, don't miss the opportunity. I don't understand. With a troubled expression on his face, he put the phone back on his desk and looked at the struggling boss across from him. He stood up and said, don't hesitate, let's just forget about this. I never came. Don't. Let's talk about it again. The owner of the film company quickly stood up and helped Du Hongji back to his seat. 65,000 yuan is really not enough. I need at least 700,000 yuan. Please tell your boss that as long as you give 700,000 yuan, I'll just carry my bag and leave. I'll keep all the people and things in the company. Alright, I'll bother my boss again. Du Hongji impatiently picked up his cell phone and dialed the phone number. If there was a Li Xian in this era, he would find that the phone number is exactly the same as the one he just called. He insists on 700,000 yuan. Don't you want to wait, afraid of procrastination? Du Hongji raised his eyebrows to the owner of the film company sitting opposite him. The other party immediately nodded and bowed, and he continued with a smile. He said to sign the contract immediately, go through the procedures today, and the company will be yours tomorrow. Alright, that's it. Don't worry, boss. That's it. Du Hongji hung up the phone and stood up. Let's go to the law firm to sign the contract and complete the procedures. Thank you very much, thank you very much. The owner of the film company took 10,000 yuan and stuffed it directly into Du Hongji's hand. Aji lowered his head and looked at it, his eyebrows beaming with joy. The prize money came so soon, and his face immediately wrinkled with a smile as he received the money in his own pocket. In Central, downstairs from the building where the film company is located, Li Luo sat in a Pingji car and hung up the phone for the second time, placing his newly purchased phone in the passenger seat. He admired Du Hongji's skillful routine, which had existed more than 40 years ago and can be said to be long-lasting. After a while, Du Hongji got on the car with the owner of the film company. This is my boss, Li Sheng. We were just discussing the acquisition of another film company nearby, but that boss is too procrastinating. My boss hates others' procrastination the most. I heard you're happy, so I immediately drove over. Hello, Li Sheng, I am Tong Yuza. The owner of the film company, sitting in the back seat, quickly bent forward and reached out to shake hands with Li Luo. With the active cooperation of Du Hongji and Tong Yuza, all procedures were completed on the same day, and the transfer of 700,000 yuan was also completed. At night, in a private room of a nightclub in Tsim Sha Sui, Li Luo and Du Hongji each hugged two beautiful women, playing and singing. Li Sheng, why do you insist on buying that company? There are many similar companies, and talking a few more times can make it much cheaper. Li Luo signaled to turn off the music, and it wasn't until Du Hongji repeated it that he could hear it clearly. I watched several movies made by that company, and the plot rhythm was average. Overall, it looked boring, but if the professionalism of the filming was good, such a crew would still be worth some money. As long as there was a good script and a good director, I could immediately invest in a new movie. Wow, boss, are you guys making movies? The four pretty girls sitting with me screamed loudly when they heard Li Luo's words. Li Luo smiled and nodded, looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Not to mention, there is a reason why consumption is expensive. At least these girls have a good atmosphere, which has brought out his inner sense of superiority. He thinks it's really amazing to be able to make a movie on Hong Kong Island in 1980. Boss, how about celebrating with 6 more bottles of champagne, said the bully beside him, rubbing against Li Luo's arm. Of course not a problem, Li Luo pinched fiercely and pointed to Du Hongji sitting on the side, saying, tonight Du Xing pays the bill, everyone has fun, drink and sing. What? How could it be like this? Du Hongji spat out XO from his mouth and exclaimed excitedly, boss, how could you be like this? I just negotiated a big deal for you and saved you 300,000. You originally wanted to spend 1 million. I said 1/10 of the money I saved would be yours. Li Luo immediately counted out 30,000 yuan bills from his pocket, making the beautiful women's eyes sparkle. He proudly stuffed one into each beautiful woman's pocket, and the remaining 20.6 were handed over to the dull Du Hongji. Today you asked me to sing the double reed with you, don't I want the appearance fee? Li Luo pushed aside the pretty girl and sat next to Du Hongji, reaching out to embrace his neck and whispering, he suddenly gained 50,000 yuan more, didn't he thank you? Boss, this this. Du Hongji didn't expect Li Luo, who looked only in his 20s, to be so knowledgeable. Alright, Li Luo patted Du Hongji's shoulder and said with a smile, it's all small things. As long as we get things done, I don't care about these things. But if you lose the big for the small, then it's unforgivable. Just now, Du Xing invited your Bo to have a late-night snack. Tonight, I'll pay for your abalone, Li Sheng. Li Luo arrogantly dried up the XO in his cup, while Du Hongji next to him was still a bit scared. Li Sheng is so handsome. What? Li Sheng is so handsome. Chapter 9. New Boss Visits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The next day, Li Luo woke up refreshed in the luxurious suite of the newly opened Lijing Hotel, with 3 women lying beside her with snow-white skin and graceful figures. Sure enough, my physical strength has returned to its peak when I was young, even surpassing it a little bit. Amidst the clattering sound of water, Li Luo was very satisfied with his victory last night, even feeling a bit unsatisfied. He thought he could challenge a few more. Boss Li, where are you taking us to play today? We want to take your Pingji for a ride. At the small dining table in the living room of the suite, Li Luo and the 3 women were having breakfast against the backdrop of the sea view. It's not like there's anything good about a convertible for a ride. I have something else to do today, and I'll see you again next time. Li Luo hastily took a few bites and put on a suit that had already been washed by the hotel. You can rest here. I've been renting this room for a long time for a month, he said. Wow, Boss Li is really handsome. Li Luo arrived at the hotel lobby, and Du Hongji had already sat there waiting. You're in good spirits, don't delay anything, Li Luo joked. Li Sheng is not as young as Li Sheng, and he is as lively as a tiger. Du Hongji smiled sincerely and found himself getting along well with the young boss he had just met. The friendship between the men quickly rose last night. Don't always call me Li Sheng, it's too unfamiliar. In the future, you can call me Arlo and I will call you Ji Gu. Brother Chicken, I dare not take it for granted. I don't have your body, Arlo. Li Luo laughed heartily, and the two walked outside the hotel. The waiter had parked the car at the door and casually threw out a 10 Hong Kong dollars bill. In the car, Du Hongji's actions were exaggerated and he hesitated to speak. Allo, are you really new to Hong Kong Island? Yeah, this is still fake. I still got a temporary ID card, and it's only been over half a month now. Then why are you so seasoned? Oh, did you say 1 to 3? That's not it. If I were 20 years younger, I could still do it. I said I can still do it at the age of 40, do you believe me? Li Luo glanced at him and remembered his past experiences of tigers and wolves. I wonder if there are those small pills on Hong Kong Island in this era. If it weren't for something serious today, I would have been fine last night. So give it a try tonight. Du Hongji wiped off the non-existent sweat on his forehead and said, to be honest, after completing the procedures yesterday, I have already asked Tong Yuza to inform the company employees that the new boss will take office today and he should be waiting for you to take over in the company. Okay, we all hired a big law firm to handle it, and the procedures are not bad, but the fees are a bit high. You also know that the cost is high. You booked a suite at the Lijing Hotel for a month, which is over 10,000 yuan. Last night, the nightclub also spent over 8,000 yuan. Did you grab your money? Can you afford to spend it like this? Li Luo shook his head and said seriously, you can't talk nonsense. I am a good person, and all my money is legal income. I am a law-abiding citizen who pays taxes to the Hong Kong Island government. Just now, it was just a joke. Du Hongji saw Li Luo serious and immediately smiled. But now the acquisition of a film company costs 700,000 yuan. Do you still have enough money to invest in the movie? To be honest, Li Luo fell silent for a moment, recalling in his mind that since he won the first prize in the 6 Harmony lottery according to Chengdu Li's record, he continued to buy at Chengdu, but did not even win a consolation prize. A bonus of 3.82 million yuan, excluding 500,000 yuan to be distributed to the wealthy family and Hua, 1.3 million yuan to buy a house, 100,000 yuan to be prepaid for decoration, 700,000 yuan to acquire a film company, and 100,000 yuan to carry with you. The remaining balance in the account is only 1.12 million yuan. Shooting a low-cost comedy movie is enough, even a dozen or so films can be made. Of course it's enough. Li Luo showed a sunny and confident smile, but her heart began to murmur. She thought she would have direct financial freedom, but now she realizes that even a few million on Hong Kong Island in 1980 is not enough to spend. A nightclub costs over 8,000 yuan, but Nyo is really good. So he must make money immediately, and movies are his next hope. Central, Babeo Film Company. Who are you looking for? Li and Luo arrived at the front desk, but were stopped by someone. I'm Du Hongji, looking for your boss Tong Yuza. Our boss didn't come today. Du Hongji and Li Luo exchanged a glance and felt something was wrong. Let's go in and wait, they said as they were about to take a step. Inside is the office area, unrelated people are not allowed to enter. The front desk quickly walked out to stop the two people. You should have seen me yesterday. I was discussing things with your boss. Oh, the front desk said strangely, it looks a bit like that, but yesterday I saw your head lifted like a big boss, and today it's in this posture. I apologize for not recognizing it at a glance. My boss Li Sheng already acquired this company yesterday and made an agreement with Tong Yuza to hand it over today. This is my boss, and he will also be your boss in the future, understand? Du Hongji said with a smile on his face. Those two, please come in. I'll give the boss a call. The front desk glanced at Li Luo who remained silent and reached inside, immediately grabbing the phone. Li Luo walked into the office area and found that the area was only 50 or 60 square meters, with 7 or 8 people sitting inside. There was also a partition inside. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, it should be the boss's office. Are you two? A woman stood up and her eyes lit up. Are you Du Sheng? Who is this? My boss Li Sheng, who will also be the boss of this company in the future, will notify everyone to hold a meeting and officially announce it. The woman was stunned for a moment and shouted directly, Hi everyone, we have a new boss and we have money to pay. Underpaid wages. Li Luo's heart skipped a beat. Yesterday, he was too anxious to handle the procedures and only investigated whether the company had any debts, ignoring the fact that it would default on wages. How many people are there in the company now? Li Luo asked. Excluding the boss, there were 12 people, but 4 of them resigned within a few days and didn't work today. The woman said, Boss Li, my name is He Xiaoling, and everyone calls me Lingling, responsible for makeup. Li Luo looked at He Xiaoling's makeup and clothing, and it was indeed good. Apart from being slightly darker, it was even more beautiful than the heavily dressed girls at the nightclub last night. What are the positions of those 4 people? Li Luo was willing to acquire this company, looking for a ready-made crew. Unexpectedly, on his first day in office, he discovered that someone had already left. Our director, 2 cameras, and 1 screenwriter. He Xiaoling then introduced the names and positions of the other people who had already stood up, one of whom was Zhao Lingqin, a charming middle-aged woman who was also the company's finance and personnel manager. At this moment, the front desk ran over and said anxiously, I can't reach the boss. No one answered the phone at home or his mobile phone. She is Tong Yun from our front desk, introduced He Xiaoling. Our boss's niece. Li Luo nodded slightly, everyone is at work with peace of mind and their wages will never be delayed. Then he asked Zhao Lingqin, He Xiaoling, and Tong Yun to enter the office that originally belonged to the former boss. Chapter 10. High Interest Loans Again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. In the office, Li Luo sat directly on the boss's chair that originally belonged to Tong Yuza. Who can help me find Tong Yuza? Li Luo looked at Tong Yun first, and upon closer inspection, he realized that the heavily make-up girl seemed to be only 17 or 18 years old, with an ordinary appearance and a few visible acne spots. It was better to let He Xiaoling serve as the front desk. Boss, what's up? He Xiaoling's gentle and sweet voice made Li Luo's hair crispy, and he couldn't help but ask, "Are you so sure that I'm the boss?" Of course, 6 or 7 people have already come to negotiate the acquisition during this period, but none of them have reached an agreement. Besides, the current situation of this company, no one dares to impersonate the boss. What is the current situation? Li Luo glanced at Du Hongji, who followed in, and the other person also looked bewildered. The boss owes a large amount of high-interest loans, and every 2 or 3 days someone comes to collect the debt, which lasts for a whole day. It's been 3 days since he came, so why should he come today? What? Li Luo and Du Hongji roared together, startling the 3 women. Have you not investigated before? Many companies that voluntarily sell cannot afford to pay off bank loans or high-interest loans, Zhao Lingqin, who is around 40 years old, said in confusion. Li Luo leaned back in the soft and comfortable boss's chair, calmed down, and slowly said, "Who can help me find him? Who knows where he is hiding now?" The 3 women looked at each other, but no one spoke. Tong Yun, you are his niece. You should know where he lives, right? Li Luo could only look at the youngest girl. The arrogant front desk girl just now was a bit panicked. My uncle sold the house 2 months ago, and I don't know where he lives tonight now, Tong Yun timidly said, completely losing his previous arrogance. And what about his family? After the house was sold, I immigrated and only uncle stayed here, but I really don't know where he lives. I'm just his distant niece who came to work here 6 months ago. Li Luo closed his eyes and remembered several months ago when this company had filmed its last movie, but it was rejected by Jia. Perhaps it was because of that well-made movie that led to a series of financial crises. Li Luo opened his eyes again and asked in a calm voice, when did this company default on wages? Zhao Lingqin, the finance and human resources manager, replied, 2 months ago, this old bastard sold his house without paying anyone a salary and still owed me 30,000 yuan. That's what I've worked hard to save up to buy a house. Yo. Li Luo heard a different smell. You guys go out first, Lingqin stays. When only Li Luo and Zhao Lingqin were left in the room, Li Luo spoke again, are you an old acquaintance with Tong Yuza? Well, I've been here since he founded this company for 3 years. I'm not saying that, what I mean is, can you help me find him? Zhao Lingqin's face turned slightly red and she shook her head. How much high-interest loan did he owe? Li Luo continued to ask. He said he borrowed 200,000 yuan, which was borrowed 5 months ago. At that time, the last movie was invested too much, so he borrowed the money, which was still mortgaged by this company. What? Li Luo couldn't help but learn his cousin's buttocks and bounce up, showing off his unique 2.5 level English. I stamped the company seal at that time. Shit. Li Luo couldn't help but shout a 2.5 words, and asked in astonishment, is this legal? I'm not sure if it's legal or not, but there's always a way for high-interest loans to collect money, and even banks will find them to collect bad debts on their behalf. Li Luo lay on the chair, clenching his fists and rubbing his temples. He squinted as he looked at the charming woman across from him, his voice becoming low and powerless. Help me find him, I'll give you the 30,000 yuan, and I'll give you an additional 10,000 yuan as a reward. From now on, your monthly salary will increase by another 1,000 yuan. Really? Zhao Lingqin smiled and hesitated as the handsome boss across from him nodded solemnly. I know he also has a small mansion outside, located near Taichung Road in Tsuanwan. Okay, once I find him, I'll immediately give you 40,000 yuan, and I'll also make up for everyone's salary, with an additional bonus of 2,000 yuan per person. Li Luo stood up and quickly went to find the person. Zhao Lingqin grabbed Li Luo's sleeve and whispered, "Boss, be careful with He Xiaoling. She also knows that place and may contact Lao Tong." Li Luo glanced at Zhao Lingqin and then outside, "You guys." Zhao Lingqin nodded shyly, while Li Luo chuckled in his heart and pretended to be angry. This old man is really good at playing. He won't let go of either of the two beautiful women in the company. When I leave, you can call her and Tong Yun in, be responsible for keeping an eye on them, and then tell everyone about my decision. As long as I can find Tong Yuza, everyone's monthly salary will increase by 1,000, and you will increase by 3,000. Thank you, boss. Zhao Lingqin's waves kept rubbing against Li Luo's left arm, causing Li Luo to forcefully squeeze her plump buttocks. As soon as Li Luo stepped out of the office, he noticed several shirtless tattooed men breaking into the office area, with colorful hair, surrounding He Xiaoling and Tong Yun with vulgar language. It was clear at a glance that they were not serious people. "Allo," they said, they're debt collectors. Du Hongji leaned in and whispered. "Everyone, the boss has changed here. If you want to collect the debt, go find Tong Yuza." Li Luo stepped forward and separated several tattooed men around the second daughter. "Who the fuck are you?" A tattooed man opened his mouth first and pushed Li Luo. At a glance, he saw that it was a pony. Li Luo stood still and allowed him to push a few times in a row. With a gentle push, the opponent took a few steps back and fell to the ground. "It's a bit interesting," said a tattooed man who looked a bit like a big shot. "Pretty guy, Tong Yuza owes our company money. Would you be willing to bear it instead?" Li Luo spread out his hands and said, "It has nothing to do with me at all. If you want money, go find him." But this little girl said, "This company has already been bought by you." The frustrated man glanced at Tong Yun, who was hiding by the side with his arms, and then looked up at Li Luo, who was taller than him. "Tong Yuza used this company as collateral and borrowed 200,000 yuan from us. Now, it's been over 5 months and he wants to repay more than 500,000 yuan with interest. I see that you like it, so I'll give you the change. You take out 500,000 yuan, and let's settle this matter. Don't let me run away time and time again. I only came to Hong Kong Island half a month ago, and my temporary ID card is less than a month ago." Li Luohun casually took out his ID card and shook it in front of the frustrated man. "What happened 5 months ago has nothing to do with me. This company was acquired by me on behalf of a law firm, and it has been confirmed that there is no debt and all procedures are legal. Don't tell me it's useless, I also have his loan voucher with the company's seal on it." The frustrated man took out a piece of paper, raised his hands, and shook it in front of Li Luo before being taken away. "Hi, what are you doing?" The frustrated man looked at Li Luo, who had snatched the loan voucher, feeling a bit panicked. "Give it back to me." The frustrated man jumped up several times to try to retrieve it, but was dodged by Li Luo. He angrily ordered his subordinates to take action. Li Luo raised his hand and grabbed the man by the neck, forcefully lifting him from the ground. "Don't force me to take action. I dare to swim over from the mouth of a snake with my life, so I'm not someone who is afraid of death. You may not know that there are snakes in the mouth of a snake, which can kill people." The frustrated man's face instantly turned red, and he grabbed Li Luo's strong and powerful hand, struggling to say, "What do you want to do? I'm from Sinian, and if you offend me, don't try to establish a foothold in Central. I said don't force me to take action." Li Luo repeated word for word, his skills have been verified since he first swam ashore. In the past half-month, including last night's 1.1 confrontation, everything has been proven. Today's Li Luo is not the same as before. In terms of physical strength, and agility, he even wants to learn 3 moves and 2 moves, to pick up bullets empty-handed. However, when thinking about his future plans, it is important to quickly earn a lot of money and make friends with those female stars in his previous life, and not to distract his energy. Me, I didn't move. The frustrated man's face turned increasingly red, and the horses behind him were all blinded. He looked at the bamboo pole-shaped handsome guy like a strongman and stuttered, shouting, "Quick, let go of our boss." Li Luo saw him let go, and the frustrated man fell to the ground and quickly got up.